Welcome to the More Time, More Money and More Wealth mini podcast for medical professionals, brought to you by MediSuccess and the WOW Advisors Group. This podcast is dedicated to medical professionals who would like to work smarter, not harder, earn significantly more income and create astonishing wealth. Now, let me introduce you to our host today, Hitesh Mohanlal.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of our More Time, More Money, More Wealth podcast for savvy medical professionals. And this is episode 6. And today I wanted to talk about alternative income. And this is particularly important for medical professionals because most of you exchange time for money. And I normally say that's probably one of the worst exchanges you can really have. And the reason is because time is something you never get back. And at the end of the day, most people crave time, not necessarily money, especially as time goes on. And so what I say to a lot of medical professionals is, look, you want to get out of this rat race of putting time and money together. You need to break the bond. And in order to break the bond, it actually means you've got to do something that is not medically related. And that can be quite scary for many of you. So one of the things that I get back often is, it sounds really easy, let's get alternative source of income, but how do you really do that? How does it really work? What should I do? How do I start? And I think if you're in that phase where you're thinking, you know what, I really want an alternative source of income, this is not something that's just going to happen. It is something you have to plan and implement. Okay. And I see many medical professionals who are high earning medical professionals and have lived most of their lives in a nice and fairly affluent manner. And they get into their 50s, sometimes even their 60s. And then they start thinking and saying, oh, if I do X, Y, and Z, it's going to have an effect on my income. So I have to keep working. And we do have clients who are in their 60s, 70s. I think at one stage we had someone nearly in there coming up to their 80s who is no longer a client now, but who really don't want to do the work, but feel they have to because they've got external commitments or because they won't be able to live the lifestyle that they want. So it's really, really important that you build a plan and you then execute that plan, okay? And that's what most medical professionals struggle with, okay? But one thing I will tell you is, in most cases, if you are time poor or you don't feel comfortable with the knowledge you have regarding external or alternative sources of income, then you're probably going to need some help, all right? So reach out to us if you need to, or find someone who you can trust and get information from. The thing about alternative income is there's various sources, okay? And there's various ways of trying to generate alternative income. Now, for some people, that may mean, you know what, I'm going to buy a piece of land, I'm going to build on it, and then I'm going to make some profit out of it. Okay. Now that can work. It's not that it can't, but it's not something that is sustainable. So you've got to keep doing it. Okay. And a one-off doesn't normally work. And a lot of people don't realize is when you're buying land, trying to build on it, you're dealing with lots and lots of different people. It's a complex thing to do. It's a very, very time-consuming thing to do. And people do it because they think they're going to make an awful lot of money out of it. And yes, sometimes you will, but it's a lot of time and effort in order to get there. Now, I'm not saying don't do land developments or anything like that, but just be aware of what it means. Okay. So one thing that I will say to you is when you're looking for an alternative source of income, work out what it is you want at the same time. We will have some clients who will say, you know what, I don't care if it takes up 20 hours of my time. I love doing this. I really want to do it. And I want to build this particular whatever it is that they want to build. I'll have other clients on the other end who say, you know what, I just want something nice and steady, nothing that takes up too much of my time, and I don't want any hassle. Okay. I'll get others who say, look, I don't mind a bit of hassle, but I don't want too much. Okay. You've got to work out what it is you are, because once you work that out, then you can go for a plan. And then when it all goes sort of like pear-shaped, it's not that much of an issue because you kind of knew that that's what was going to happen. So one of the things that I find with medical professionals, they go into, development, and then it takes up an awful lot of time, and then they come back and say, I'm sick and tired of this because it's taking up so much time. But the reason that happened was because when they jumped in, they didn't realize what it actually really meant. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is whatever you decide to come up with, make sure you're comfortable with what it means. Okay? Some people love drama, some people hate it. What are you? Okay? So that's number one. Work out what kind of person you are and what sort of work you want to do. The next phase then becomes is how much kind of risk do you want to really take? Okay? So there are some ventures which you can get involved in which are a little bit risky. Okay? Land and property development's not necessarily risky, but it can be. Okay, when things go wrong, it can be a real problem. Okay, sometimes we will advise clients that, you know what, you can actually go out and buy a business which will generate income for you, but you don't want a business that's going to take up a massive amount of your time. Okay, because that defeats the purpose. The idea is to work less and earn more, not earn more and work more. So work out what kind of venture you're going to go into. So for example, gyms tend to be a fairly decent, stable income generating alternative. Okay. And the reason is if you think about it, when a gym operates, a 24-hour gym, there is no one there for 24 hours looking after it. It kind of runs by itself. You've got a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the afternoon. It's not labor intensive, and it kind of can work really, really nicely. And what you want to do with something like that is to say, well, look, I'm generating, argument's sake, $600,000 a year. Okay. I want to work a day or two less. So we've got to kind of replace about $150,000. Okay. We go out, buy a gym. It generates $100,000. We put it in a low tax environment, so you're not paying high taxes on it. So number one, you've got the same income. Number two, you've got a lower tax environment. And number three, you don't have to work 6 days. You can work 5 days or 4 days. And that works beautifully as long as you get the right business. The other one that works are childcare businesses, but childcare is a little bit more risky because it's regulated a lot more. So that's an alternative source of income. The other type is where you don't really want to get involved. You're happy for the long term to kind of look after itself. And that's where you're going into things like share investments, which create over a period of time a distribution type income or a dividend type income. Okay. Those will work also. And again, you put them in low tax environments, which allows you to work maybe less, have the same income or similar income, and then you're working less too. Okay, so that works. Equally, rental properties work as well. So when you go out and buy an investment property, now what most accountants will tell you is buy a rental property, borrow on it, and have negative gearing because it's good for tax. And it is. Okay. there's no doubt you will get a tax break and you will pay a little bit less tax. You will also be normally out of pocket less, which means you actually have less money in your pocket. And this is the way that I'll explain it. If your rental property makes a loss of $10,000, you will get nearly $5,000 back from the tax office because it's a negatively geared property and you got something back. The problem is you actually spent out 10 grand. So you're still 5 grand out of pocket. Okay, you got 10 grand out, 5 back, you're left with 5. So your 5 grand, you're still pushing money out. Okay. The other thing it does is until you pay that loan off, you're kind of forced to work, because if you don't work, you can't pay that negatively geared property off. Okay. So it may be kind of okay for taxes. It's actually terrible for working less and effectively earning more. Okay. So that doesn't really work for me. For me, you buy property, you pay it off as fast as you can, and that will generate passive income for you from which you can work less hours. Now, the chances are one property is probably not going to be enough for you. Okay, it's not going to allow you to work one whole day less, but you could be in a position where if you have 3 or 4, it will be enough for you to lower your work days by at least 1. Okay, and I have some people who have bought a number, and we're just the objective is to pay these loans off as fast as possible and then let the rental income come in from which we can live. So that is what I will tell you about alternative income. You must have a plan to do it. And if you don't have a plan to do it, you need another plan as to what's going to happen when you get into your 50s and your 60s. Because once you get into that phase, you really don't want to work. But if you've got loans and things flying around, you're going to have to do some work in order to pay those off. Okay. So number 1, get a plan. What is my plan for generating other income? When you do come up with that plan, you want to ensure it actually generates income, doesn't take away income from you, even if it's not necessarily fantastic from a tax point of view. All right. Negative gearing works, but in many ways it does not work. Okay. Work out what kind of industry you want, whether you want to be involved or not involved. Okay. And remember, the objective is to buy something that gives you income, doesn't take it away. Okay. I hope that was useful. Thank you very much for listening or watching, and have a great day.